Welcome, everybody, to another episode with our special guest, Henry. Today, we are going to be talking about supplements, what supplements you should be taking, our recommendations, or Henry's recommendations, more importantly. Hopefully, I can, maybe he'll be able to change my routine a little bit. Maybe I can add a little bit more, maybe take some stuff out. We're going to go over some quick information in general about supplements, why people want to take them, should or shouldn't take them. Then we'll get into the recommendation list towards the end. This is going to be a quick episode. We're going to just try and give you some really good information. So I wanted to start with why do you think people are so drawn to supplements? And do you think it's like the greatest marketing ploy ever? Or do you think it is people really think, marketing aside, like it gives them some type of edge, or it's like almost something above like food grade? It's like something super, almost like something just so good that it's going to change them.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, honestly. I mean, ideally, you ask anybody if there was a pill that you just took and you built 15 pounds of lean mass, you take it. If there was a pill that had you, like tomorrow, you'd lose 10% body fat, you take it. All right, it's the entire, like the whole magic pill concept that I truly believe everybody's convinced that doesn't exist, but everybody wishes it did. Hence, it's like, well, if it doesn't kill me, I might as well give it a shot. You never know. So we kind of fall into that. So in large part is that it's looking for the next hack, right? The next shortcut. And I just think it's human nature because we perceive that to just be efficiency. And not consider the possible drawbacks, even if just like psychologically you're getting in your way as far as the right mindset to have, that you're always thinking about shortcuts instead of like, you know what, just put your head down and do the work that you're supposed to do. That being said, there are a lot of times when we are in a big enough deficit where the only way to get us quote unquote right or back to call it, what you want to call it, back to zero, if you want, or in homeostasis, is to get a little boost from an external source that's not a food source. And we also need to consider that food right now isn't what it used to be or what it was supposed to be, and that it is not as rich in nutrients as it once was. So we do need to take that into account as well. I think, we can chat on different types of supplements, and we can put those into like two basic buckets, and discuss a little bit further on both cases.
Okay. So do you think that will change? Like if you're looking back, 20, 30 years ago, and then again, like 50 years ago, people were probably people were more skeptical about supplements, and people it was side effect first. And what was this going to do to me? And now it seems to be in reverse. Like, what is it going to do for me in a good way? And that side effect's not as bad. Do you think, we're changing a little bit back to where people are trying to take less, or where it's like they want the premium supplement and trying to get like the best they can?
Yeah, it feels to me like that is not completely linear. It's more like we go in cycles, right? And if you consider, let's consider someone who's an experienced fitnesser. If they think back to when they got into it, it's likely at some point during adolescence where it's like they started hitting the gym and whatnot, and they probably went all in on supplements. Pretty much, if you had any spare cash that you had, you'd be willing to throw at supplements because you're a kid and you're in complete disregard for possible side effects. You just want the possible, boost. So you take them, and then you start hearing, start getting a little bit smarter, getting more information. Maybe all of a sudden you see some sort of spike in a set of labs that you got. It's like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be taking all this stuff, all this crap that I'm taking. And you tone it down and you go into no, I'm going to go and like just get everything from my food. And then you do that, and then you get labs further down the road, and you're deficient in 3 things, and now you want to supplement back. So I think there's like natural circles of how this will operate on an individual basis. I know I went maybe I'm just kind of just going over my story there with that little bit I shared, but it's not unusual. Like I have enough experience hearing from people, clients on this, and it's very similar, journeys through that. So I definitely do not think that we're going to go into like a craze into like supplements are a must for everybody. But I also think that science is pretty far ahead to where when enough, studies are conducted on certain supplements or whatnot, we can have a much better idea of what things are safe to use and what quantities, so forth and so on. And also testing can be very powerful and just letting us know, like, hey, you are truly deficient in these things. You need to do something. And, you can try with food. Sometimes that does it. And if it's not doing it, there is only one way, which will be supplementation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect segue, because the next part, in a previous episode, you mentioned about foods. We were talking about nutrition, types of diets, how you can make them work for you. And if you really want to do something a certain way, it's possible you could do it in a healthy way, whether that was you wanted to go vegetarian. You say there is a way you can do it. It might just be harder than another way. Or if you wanted to eat a lot more meat than someone else. So you said you need to get tested for food intolerances, and you could get tested for food intolerances and get tested your blood work to see where maybe certain micronutrients could be deficient, or certain biomarkers are deficient that could tell you something you could be eating more or less of. So is that kind of similar to the approach to the supplements? You get the food dialed in as much as you can, and maybe you went through two blood tests, 6 months, and you're like, wow, I'm still deficient in X. Then would you say that's where you're starting to look at a supplement for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can pull a lot of information from basic sets of lab, and what I mean basic is what you would get almost every time that you get any order for labs. So most times you'll get a CBC. Most times you'll get a CMP. A lot of times you'll get a lipid panel, vitamin D, glucose. Like anytime you go in for anything, you're going to have, the doctor's going to want to see these as well, most times. And you can pull a lot from there and like read a little bit in between the lines as to why these things may be high or maybe not high, but trending upwards. That's also something that's important to consider, right? We have these limits. Well, first we have like conventional lab ranges, which are closer to like sickness, as in this low and that high, people are usually very sick. There is, if you believe in functional medicine, which I do, much narrower ranges in which, well, yeah, this is optimal, right? Yeah, well, you're sick over there and you're sick over here, but as you get closer to that, you're almost sick. So you don't want to be almost sick. You want to be optimal, right? So maybe you have, a couple markers that are trending upwards and they're still not in that alarm range, but you see them continue to go up and up and up. And that is starting to be a concern. I'm moving in the wrong direction, and you may want to start paying attention to those. There's that, and you can go a lot more direct and just get a micronutrient panel and see where you are actually deficient. Cross-check that with what you're doing with nutrition, and you can get a lot more clarity on what you need to supplement on, right? So, say you are deficient in, iron, and you're eating the foods that you're supposed to be eating in considerable amounts to raise iron, and it's not coming up, then you need to supplement. Or maybe look a little bit further down the line as to how you're processing and whatnot. But fact of the matter is, you're eating the iron foods, it's not coming up. Right now, you need to supplement with iron and then figure out where it's going or what's happening. But you need it now. You need it. So, and I just used that example. I don't know why I chose iron, actually, because It's not one of the more common ones, but whatever.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank to any nutrient.
So you're saying, yeah, you could, I don't want to say Band-Aid, but you could use it to, X supplement to help you for, the remaining time of you figuring out why you might be deficient in something if you're going down that route.
Correct. Plus there's times when you're so far, you're so deficient that you're not going to be able to make it happen with eating the foods at maintenance levels.
Yeah.
Right? So I call that being in the negative. Right? You want to come back to zero. Homeostasis is zero. As you build into positive, you're building resilience for these things, if you want to think of it that way. You're so far in the negative that maybe consuming the foods stops you from getting more deficient, but it doesn't bring you back. And you need to get that boost to supplement for it. And mind you, we need to be okay with the Band-Aid every so often, because if you're shot, you put something on that wound so that blood doesn't stops coming out, and then you go to the hospital and you figure out how to get that out of you and how to fix it. But we always think Band-Aid. It's like no Band-Aid. It's like, yeah, sometimes you do need a Band-Aid while you're trying to figure out how to fix the bigger problem.
Yeah, so maybe people should maybe the negative connotation of Band-Aid shouldn't be there.
I don't
sometimes you might need it.
Connotation. I just think you need to have awareness of it is a Band-Aid. It's not a solution, but it's something that's necessary right now.
Yeah. All right. Okay, perfect. So you have worked with a ton of clients, and you have a few supplements here that you recommend to the general population. And then right after, you've got a few more if people are leaning more onto the performance side. So the first thing on your list was fish oil, or it might have not been first on your list. The first thing you sent to me in your list, but fish oil. Why do you recommend that? And what do you think it can do for people? Or, you can keep it basic.
So many reasons, fish oil for heart health, brain health. Many people may not know, but there's very high concentration of fatty acids in the brain. If you take out the water content, I believe that's the highest concentration of anything in there. So a lot of it in your brain. Eye function, reduce inflammation, skin health, even to reduce visceral fat, particularly around the liver. So it's something that you can definitely use a lot of. We're talking, when we mentioned quality of foods, the meat these days is not as high quality in omega-3 to omega-6 ratios. So you want fish oil to raise that omega-3 and give you, some of that healthy fat, cholesterol, HDL, to bring it up to protect you from possible heart disease. So lots of upside there, very little downside. Unless you are somebody who is taking blood thinners, amongst other things, then it may be contraindicated. But for the most part, it's positive effect for a lot of people.
Okay. The next one was probiotics.
Yeah, man. So many people struggle with digestion. So many people don't even know that they have digestive issues because it's so common. Right? We think it's normal, and it's not normal. It's just very common. And you want probiotics to get, the let's call it the good bacteria in your gut that may be destroyed by poor food choices, by medications that we're taking, alcohol intake, and other conditions that can be developed because of the aforementioned, such as SIBO, gut permeability, etc. So we want to continue to bring in that good bacteria into our gut so that we can go through with that process the way it should be.
Okay, yeah. And do you think it's something that you would take, like you would consider people, or you would recommend people taking at certain times or all the time? Or is it, does that one differ from other things? Because I also know there's a lot of different types of probiotics. Do you just find one that works for you, or,
It could be, depending, like different practitioners may be looking for particular strains, and that can be tested. If you want to go with like a general approach, you want to get a probiotic that has a wide range of strains. I have a particular brand that I recommend. It's legit like a high end probiotic. There are probiotics that are by script only, so it's going to depend on exactly what we're talking about. Usually, when I get somebody on probiotics, it's because they're already showing some symptom of dysbiosis, and it's kind of like, yeah, just take this for the rest of your life. Again, one of those things that very hard to see a downside. I may change the probiotic that we use or increase the dosage if the person has gone through a round of antibiotics, for example. Then we may get something a little bit more intensive or up the dose for 30, 60, 90 days to try to counter the effects of that, for example. But usually it's kind of like, just take until further notice.
Okay. All right. Next one is B complex, and you added an asterisk of maybe with folate with it.
Yeah. The two main ones there would be B12 and folate, which is B9. Those are basically the two big Bs in there, and we'll see a lot of utility physiologically for those. And we can pull that information from different characteristics or different labs that refer to red blood cells, such as hemoglobin, MVC, and those, RDW as well. And a lot of times when we see those coming in high, it may be indicative of vitamin B deficiency or vitamin B anemia. Folate falls into that. So usually, unless we have more reason to dig a little bit deeper, I just suggest the person take a vitamin B complex. Step after that, I may also suggest that they take a folate supplement on top of that. There's cases when I recommend that people take the B complex, B12, and the folate on top of that, depending on what we're seeing there. But, overall, brain health, red cell production, supporting the nervous system, DNA production. Folate has a lot to say in converting food into fuel, mainly carbs into glucose. So, so much. It's of great importance, the entire B spectrum. And again, other than your P looking radioactive, there's not a whole lot of a downside to it or side effects. And by that, I mean it comes out bright yellow.
Yeah. Is there a specific like group or avatar, like a person that you are commonly seeing that need it more, or maybe like a specific diet or anything that you see where you're like, I already know you're going to need some B and it's going to help you?
Well, definitely vegetarians. So the more plant-based group, or people whom for whatever reason need to limit protein consumption, whether it be like we actually do need to limit it, or they are hesitant to eat a little bit more meat. I coincidentally have worked with 3 people that are kidney donors. So they have one kidney. I don't know how so many of these people have come to me, but they have. And it's a big concern, right? So no, I can't eat a high protein diet because, run it by your doctor. If you don't want to, or if we want to stay in the lower side of protein consumption, is it okay that you take B vitamin or B complex? And, those are cases in which you may want to see that. Harder charging athletes, right, or people who train with some intensity, we'll usually see, some depletion of that as well if we look at blood work.
Okay. All right. The next one you have is magnesium.
Ooh, man. So many different types of magnesium. I want to say like 7 or 8 different magnesiums. Heart and blood pressure, brain and memory, relaxation and sleep. That's a real big one. Magnesium citrate can help with constipation, lactate with digestion, energy, blood sugar management, even muscle soreness. When you look at something like magnesium sulfate, magnesium is very powerful, and it's very, very common for people to be deficient in it. Again, something that I may have people like stat different types in there. For the most part, I'll use like a magnesium complex type supplement to do during the day, and then like go to MAC glycinate to support it at night times to promote better sleep. But lots of goodness that comes from there. Yeah.
Do you see products that already have it kind of stacked, or are you saying like, hey, just go find this one, these 3, and just purchase them all?
No. So usually I'll find one that has 3 or 4 different types, and I like the dosage in there, and I recommend that one particular brand. And then the one that I most commonly recommend, like directly for it to be that variation, is going to be magnesium glycinate, which is for sleep. Okay.
And then I guess we can go into zinc now, because it's commonly sold together, ZMA, zinc and magnesium. And it's I guess people will commonly say you need both of those. And, so what about zinc?
Yeah. Same deal. Immune system support, gut health. There's even some correlation to sarcopenia prevention, or I wouldn't say prevention, but maybe slowing it down a little bit, or helping you like hang on to your muscle mass. And like the 2 big things with both zinc and magnesium is it's very hard to get adequate amounts from like everyday food items. And even food items that do have it, it may be problematic to eat enough of those because they have other side effects, or they completely throw your macros out. So it's one of those cases where, a lot of people are deficient on both. And these are 2 very, very important minerals, micronutrients that, have minimal side effects.
Okay. And then the final one, vitamin D. Everyone needs it.
Man, most everyone. Fairly easy one to test. Again, it's you need a particular order, or you need it specified in your labs, and a lot of misconceptions surrounding it. People coming in with vitamin D in the 20s or 30s, that's actually quite low. It won't jump out in a set of labs or in traditional ranges as, alarm, but there is very, very high correlation to chronic disease prevention, particularly when vitamin D is above 50. Ideally, we want to see it at 60. I'm happy with 50 because I've seen the stats of how much lower risk you have of all of these diseases once it's there. It's one of those things where, I get it from the sun. But then they tell you that you can't be out in the sun because you're going to get skin cancer. Or they tell you to use sunblock, and now you're not absorbing vitamin D. Even when you are, there's even, schools of thought of that, well, you're out in the sun and you sweat and vitamin D is produced in the skin, but then you come in and shower or jump in the pool and you wash it away and it doesn't get absorbed back in the, like there's so much, around this right now that it's hard to really be able to figure out how to get enough natural vitamin D naturally. Not to mention, I have it for free. I have it year round. Not to mention people who can't go outside, for 6 months or more in a year because it's 0 degrees and there's no sun. And again, vitamin D, you may have heard that we call it vitamin D, but it's more like a hormone because it triggers so many other functions. It's involved in, man, I'm going to say hundreds of functions. The one that we can 100% absolutely measure the impact of is on bone density. So, I mean, that's huge if you want to be healthy, age well, have a strong, skeletal system and well, musculoskeletal, whatever the word is, damn it, musculoskeletal system. So yeah, definitely lots of value there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I have where I get my blood work done. It's through a nurse practitioner that's a friend of mine, and she's done CrossFit weightlifting, and she's a pro bodybuilder now. And mine was right like 59, I think, so it was right at 60. And she's like, "This is very good, but at your intensity and your like the amount you're training, and I guess the lifestyle you're living, like this is good, but I wouldn't say be content with it. Like keep trying to get sun, and you can indefinitely, because this was in June, so I was getting sun where I am. So she's like, just make sure in these other months that you want to keep this high if you want to stay healthy, continue to train hard, and not get sick. Because usually, again, like you said, if you fall in the range, and most people are like, yeah, you're good, and sometimes you got to dig a little deeper to make it optimal.
Absolutely.
All right, so now that was the basic list for basic recommendations you have for most people, where you can get a really high upside and not have a ton of risk or downsides. And now we're going into the performance list, which you said is the above list, everything we just chatted about. And then the first one you have there is creatine.
Yeah, and honestly, that's going to be my only one.
Okay.
I mean, go in, look at research, see what your favorite bodybuilder or influence is selling, and you'll see that creatine will always be on their list, and then everything else is varying. Creatine, again, you'll also hear it is hands down the most researched performance supplement. It is there's unequivocal proof. Like nobody will say that no, like this may not work. This does work. It increases phosphocreatine levels, so it helps you produce ATP, delivers more energy to the muscles, aids in your output. Hence, you can work to get more muscle growth, and then it also helps in recovery. And recent studies are now tying it to improved cognitive function, to the point where it's being said, like, on your rest days, you take your creatine. If you're not working out, take creatine, because there is, again, minimal, like negligible people who have adverse effects to it. Usually the effect is for a handful of I don't know if a handful, a very small percentage. There is a little bit higher water retention, so you'll see or experience some swelling that is not necessarily problematic to your health, but if you're uncomfortable with it, then okay, stop using it. But for the most part, it is proven to provide results and minimal downside. Everything else is, man, some sort of gimmick that will incorporate creatine and usually have some variation of the stimulant. So like your caffeine, a lot of them will give you beta-alanine. And beta-alanine, again, yes, there is like some research to suggest that it does have some benefit. For the most part, it's an illusion. So you'll get the pins and needles, so it feels to you like it's actually, but was your output any better? I don't know. Maybe, maybe a placebo effect of you think like, ooh, I'm so jacked up, I'm going to crush it. But at the end of the day, I mean, it didn't directly do anything. So HMB, testosterone boosters, like all of that, man, read a little bit, like go a little bit deeper, read the white paper on these companies, if there is one, see who's validating, the stats that they're putting out, what research they've done, and
who's paying for it.
Yeah, you're gonna come out empty.
Yeah, it's past the ones you listed. There still could be some validity to somebody taking them, but it just starts getting more narrow and more narrow to where that person is, like a lot of the test boosters, even ones that have been clinically proven to work, they work minimally, and it's usually at someone who's already like very below average range, or like, so if your testosterone is in the 200s, then it's helping you. But if you're in the 400s, it doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
And that's already a very small amount of people. And yeah, like creatine, like you said, people, I've had a handful of people say their stomach gets a little upset, and then they just change the form, whether it's to a pill or they just change something with the way they're ingesting it, and it's fine. And it's an osmolyte, so yeah, it draws water into the cell, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. And I've never seen anyone that's just like, wow, I've been blown up ever since I've been on creatine. And if they are telling you that, there's something more to the story.
Well, I mean, I can be empathetic to that, because first time I ever took creatine, again, I was 17, and I fell for the whole loading thing. So I did 25 grams for the first week, and on day 3, like my pecs ballooned. Like I literally had 2 balloons in my. Sounds funny, but I was like,
that's nuts.
Like 3 days into the gym, and I'm getting huge, and it was 100% the creatine. Like that was gone in 3 days. And well, I've never done a creatine loading after that. I just go into like the recommended 5 grams, regardless of how long I've been off it or whatnot.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened again. So I do think that it's real, and that it can be significant, depending on the dosage and whatnot. And maybe unsolicited advice, but you just buy creatine monohydrate, plain, unflavored, and you take that.
And pure.
I mean, if you need to mix it, but honestly, just dry scoop that motherfucker. It's super easy. 1 shot of water, be done with it. Easily digestible. It's cheaper than what everybody else is. So they're trying to sell you this, other supplement that has all these things in a proprietary creatine. Like, that is bullshit. The one that works is creatine monohydrate, and that's that.
Yep. Yeah, and then one last point on the beta alanine. It works well for endurance athletes, but so a lot of studies came out recently, and I was listening to a doctor talk about it, that the tingling is just a side effect. It has nothing to do with, I mean, like you said, the placebo can't help you, and maybe you feel jacked up and you feel warmer and you're ready, but that has nothing to do with what the supplement is aiming to do. And they called it, it's something like a loading phase, but not really a loading phase, but you have to take it for such a long period of time to start developing the characteristics that it's trying to help. And it was something like, I want to say it was like it's something weird, like 93 or like, so it was 3 months, like 93 days. And you have to be taking it consistently for that long and training for that long. That's when you would start seeing the benefits of it. And then you'd have to, then continue to take it to keep reaping those benefits. So, yeah, it's not like you said, a lot of these things, people just think what's happening, and then they attach it to a feeling, and that feeling happens to be getting tingles and, itchy face. But, I don't know I don't know too many people that are taking it for that long and training that hard that long. So you got to be careful with what you buy, what you're spending your money on, because you could be buying some really good food.
Yeah. Again, most of these supplements will have some amount of creatine in some shape, way, or form, and some stimulant. It's usually going to be caffeine to kind of make you feel like, you're running hot. But again, take your creatine. If it's an important training day event, whatnot, drink your espresso if your gut can handle it, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Okay, good deal. All right. Any final words for anyone out there for looking for supplements? Any places they can go? I mean, your Instagram alone, you post a good bit about supplements and nutrition. So besides that,
yeah, I mean, always, intentions are king, right? So what exactly are you hoping to get from the supplements? Then also know that, nutrition will be ahead of that. Are you eating enough? Are you eating the right foods? And then, if you are still needing a boost, as the name suggests, use them as a supplement, not as a centerpiece of your program.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. For me, I would say examine.com. If you haven't been there, it may have, you still have to do a little bit of research yourself, but it gives a very good non-biased look at a lot of studies on any supplement. So if you just want something quick, someone is like, hey, you should try this, plug it into Examine, look at some of, like Henry said, read the white papers. It'll give you a few lists and it'll say, this really wasn't a great study. This was a good study. It gets into detail pretty well. So yeah, just do your own research and, don't fall into the marketing and just keep it simple. I guess that's what I have.
Even particular brands and Examine, right?
Will it look up brands?
Yeah, I think so.
I haven't been on it in a good bit. I used to use it all the time, but yeah, I know it's a lot more advanced than it was when 10 years ago when I was using it, but I still recommend it to people. But yeah, they're good. And I'm sure there's, we just send Henry a DM. He'll help you.
Yeah.
Send him a DM or book a consult with him, and he can maybe run through your labs with you. And, maybe you can start a coaching relationship with him, and you don't need to do any of the looking up. He'll do it for you.
It'd be my pleasure.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for the time. I hope everyone learned something from this episode. Thank you everyone for listening. Please leave a comment on maybe a supplement that you really like or something you think maybe we missed, and you can put in the comments and we'll get back to you. So thank you everyone. Have a great day.